to take tough decisions and to have it quite centralized. But when the crisis was over, I realized that we needed to change the way we work together and to work much more through my senior management team. And I'm quite team-oriented. I'm not worried about taking tough decisions or take hard decisions, but I think decisions when an organization is not in a crisis, in the acute phase, you get so much more out of the organization if you can lead through your senior management team and really be team-oriented and be more value-based in your approach as a leader. And I think one of my major challenges is to work and to stay value-based, to lead not with directions and command control, especially since we're working in such complex organization, complex surroundings. We need to be much more value-based, and that's the toughest thing as a leader, because it would be so easy, because your staff, they hunger so much for clear direction, they hunger for precise things to deliver on. And it would be so easy for me as a leader to go back and say, well, here's the instruction, please do just as I tell you, follow the instruction, because then it would please them for the moment, but I think in the long run it would really lead the organization back into some old kind of leadership. So the real challenge is to stay in that chaotic situation, that chaotic moment when you know that you need to lead through your values and give the space to your staff and your members of your senior management team while they are still crying for precise instructions about what to do. So I think that's really the challenge. New leadership practices, and I think leadership practices, you need to change your leadership practices during the different phases of the organization, and of course during times of crisis you need to be really direct and clear and systematic and quite hard on that and centralized. Yes, but once that period is over, you need to change the leadership, and of course it's a bit like shaking the whole organization. But I believe that when you work with when the surrounding is complex, when the organization is complex, you have a whole range of staff with different skills and professions. You really need to lead through values and be really delegate through your values. You have to sort of make them understand the direction, even though it's not really a clear, very narrow goal or objective. It's probably quite a wide picture of where we're heading, and wide enough for them to sort of take their own decisions, to take their own daily decisions, even though it's insecure, they don't really know. And it also challenges the whole senior management team, but because what is really leading through values and leading through sort of what's really a value-based leadership, because we're so used to send out these instructions and directions and be very clear and command and control, and you have to have that. I'm not saying you don't need instructions, of course you do, and of course you need control, and especially in everything having to do with financial issues and accountability, and you have to be accountable, but I think we also need to be accountable in a different way in the future. And that's a challenge. And how are we valued and how are we accountable as leaders? Because it's not easy to value how we have really achieved our objectives. Well, you can see the last line on the sort of, but really it's a challenge for a board also to sort of evaluate a CEO or a Secretary General or sort of the highest leader of the organization because you have to have a different perspective of what you value and how you're accountable. Very differently, and of course differently through different phases. In the beginning, when you start working value-based, everyone thinks it's, oh, that sounds fantastic, and giving all this space. But it's also really challenging because you're not clear about am I doing the right thing, and how do I get sort of the feedback of where I'm heading. So I think, of course, the senior management team, they enjoy it, but of course they are challenged as well in their own respective leadership roles from their staff and from their middle management. And I'd say most challenging it is for the middle managers, as of course in every organization, in every kind of leadership you practice. The middle managers who really feel that it's a different way of leading their staff, at the same time challenging to keep them accountable, and they are so used to just give out these instructions and regulations, but also challenging for the board about how to evaluate the CEO or the senior management team or whatever, and also to sort of find the hard facts, because of course you need to be accountable towards the hard facts, and you really need to be sort of sure of where you're heading in a broad sense, but not the precise sense. And also, I mean, it's challenged all the time from different stakeholders' perspective, and you're challenging yourself as well, and you doubt yourself quite on a regular basis. Am I doing the right thing? Wouldn't it be easier just to go back to the normal way of leadership? At least I know that works. I have the experience. But I have a feeling that if we really want to improve and take the organization to the next level, you have to sort of move away from the systems and to work more with behavior, the culture, and that demands a whole different set of leadership skills that I'm not sure are the right ones, and I'm not sure I can evaluate whether I have them or not. It's a bit of trial and error, and going 2 steps back forward and maybe 1 step back from time to time. But I also think it's part of the society and the society we live in, because you can't work any longer in doing things in a sequence. You start with one thing and then you take the next step, because there are so many changes out there in the external world that you have to work with many different processes at the same time, to work more iterative and to work 1 step forward in one project and maybe stay and then you move things forward. It's a lot more complex, and you can't do it in sequence, and that's a challenge as a leader. So you'll be much more questioned as a leader. And also, of course, it's one of the challenges is that you can't just point out the direction, because you put so much trust in the people you have within the organization, that you're sort of more like a conductor or something than someone just pointing the direction. Of course I have to trust them. I have to trust them even when they fail, because of course they will fail. I fail from time to time, and they will fail. And I mean, the reflex is just saying, well, shouldn't have done that. Not a smart thing to do. Just to sort of think twice and say that, okay, well, what can we learn from that, and how can we move forward now, and to see it as a learning process, and it's about dealing with risk. It's a lot more about risk management as well, and still keep the trust, and understand that there will be failures, there will be things that aren't successes and all the time, but still it's what I believe in the long run, and I think that's really what we need to embrace. Sounds a bit, it's sounds a bit dizzy and chaotic and not very clear. So of course it's a challenge to describe it, and therefore I try not to describe it as often. I just do it. I think that's the easiest. And I think in the long run it will be proved that this is something that will create, this is working. And I try not to be too intellectual, trying not to sort of explain it all the time, but not externally at least, because it sounds a bit like blah 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 blah, and it sounds a bit, and I'm not really, because I'm quite a hard-working person. I don't believe in miracles and wonders, and I believe a lot in hard work, and I believe in sort of the small steps. You need to repeat things, and you need to, leadership is a lot about hard work, but still the hard work needs to be done in a different way. And I'm not that comfortable talking about it externally to media, at least not when I'm doing it. I can talk about it after a couple of years. I can talk about it externally when I've proven something and when I've seen the successes and the failures and my learnings from it. It's really an opportunity, and I'm surprised that I've enjoyed it so much, because in the beginning I thought it will take time, valuable time from my work, and I didn't want to waste that time. But at the same time I think it's given me so much, because I've had to reflect in a very open manner, not thinking that you will use this externally and it will go to media and what I say. I need to sort of think about all the words that I say and how I express myself, because I've been able to really reflect about my actions, my practice, and what I'm thinking, and I realize that sometimes I'm not thinking, I'm just doing, and I have some kind of feeling that this is the right thing to do, and sometimes I know that I've taken very cautious steps, and I've been able to reflect upon those steps. So really being able to integrate in the way you've sort of asked me questions about things that I didn't realize that I do on a daily basis. It's been so meaningful and given me some really important insights about my leadership and my job and what I do, and things that I need to change as well. Not because you've said I need to change them, but when you've asked me questions and I reflected, I've thought, oh, I really need to change this, because when I say it out loud it sounds so stupid and not very not the smartest thing to do. So it's really helped me, and it's also helped me in the way that I understand that there are different styles and different phases, and since you've sort of followed me during a couple of years, you've been able to ask sometimes the same questions once more, and I'm thinking about the answers I gave 5 years ago and thinking, well, at least I've evolved a bit. And it's been quite comfortable, but also I think that I know it's fun, and you rarely take your time to reflect upon your own leadership, and saying it out loud. And when you say it out loud, it creates something very different from when you sort of just think about it. And I also think it's really been valuable, because it's also given me the opportunity to sort of take some of the latest research into my leadership, and I don't think I had done that in the same way if I hadn't been part of a research project myself. It has made me more interested in leadership research as a whole, because also I see it as it's really new theories coming out of actually practice from different parts of very different organizations, from very different leaders, and from their, or actually our different experiences. So I'm more comfortable also with reading leadership research and reading literature on it than I was a couple of years ago.
It's so nice to know.
Yeah, and it's also been very nice getting to know you. Because you know me more than most of my staff do, actually. Yeah, I think for good and bad.
We have to do it. We should write a book.
I think so too, definitely. Yeah.
I think we should. I
Yeah.
should go back to my notes and...
Yeah. Excellent idea. Yeah, for practitioners.
Yeah.
The way you ask questions give me a hint about what you're interested in looking at. So your questions and the way you ask questions guides me in a way that I can't really
You're
describe.
also very receptive, so...
Well, thank you.
Communication.
Really.